how do you leverage your expertise or leverage your career and your experience into other areas that you want to explore?
I think that a lot of small changes add up to big change.
All of that plays back into ultimately how you serve people.
Let's show that what we're doing has impact so that we're able to do these type of things again.
So if you are in a career and you're looking for other opportunities, maybe to serve your community, maybe other industries that don't feel obviously connected to what you do, but you think you could leverage your expertise, I'm sitting here with Liz Romaine, who has absolutely done that. So Liz, how are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm doing well as well. So first, to get the make sure people have a reason to listen to this. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a vice president of Vault Communications. So I've been working in the marketing and communications field for 20 plus years. And I don't know what else to say. That's my entire identity.
Well, I know what to say because we met a couple, I don't want to say careers ago, a couple jobs ago, right?
We've known each other for like 17 or 18
17 years. And through Five Below, actually, which before they were public. And I remember we got to work together on a stop motion little film for
so great.
It is an eternal piece. It was very fun.
I actually watched that video recently, over the summer. For some reason it came up and I was like, oh, this still is tracked. It's so good.
Well, it's really funny because we did that. We used The Office music for it's an internal piece. We used The Office music. And then there's that really funny bit where we had Tom riding on a scooter in The Office.
Yes.
And The Office now is I don't even think it's nostalgia. I feel like it's mainstream. So it's pretty, I think that there are a lot of people, if they pulled that off the air, would just lose their freaking minds right now.
The only reason that we subscribe to Peacock is to watch old episodes of The Office to fall asleep to.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Peacock, you should know that. Do not lose that show. I know it's yours, so you can't, but don't lose it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we meet all these years ago. Give me a little bit of your journey. So at Five Below, you're in a marketing role there, and this is before they went public. So you were there kind of, which was cool to see, them building this thing that would eventually become, a national company that everybody sort of knows, right? But when you were first there, it wasn't. So you were at the ground floor and building this thing. Talk a little bit about that experience and take me through a little bit of your journey in marketing.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that I never even wanted to be at Five Below. I started my career in the radio music industry. And, I was a rock girly. I worked at Y100 in Philadelphia. And I thought, this is going to be my career. I'm going to make it in radio. And I loved everything about it. I worked at Y100 for 4 or 5 years in various different roles. Finally got promoted to full-time. I'm like, yes, this is so great. I was in grad school, living with my parents, making $2 an hour, but I was so, so happy. And then one day wake up and they flip the format from Y100 to a gospel station. Everyone loses their job. And my whole entire dream just essentially shattered because of the iPod. It changed the entire industry. And then, that was the end of my radio career. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I was in the middle of grad school. I had to pay my way. I had zero money because I made $2 in radio. I'm like, oh gosh, I need a job. And a girl I worked with, her boyfriend worked at IT at this company called Five Below. I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was. And she's like, oh, that's, they sell cute little things. I think you'd like it. They're looking for a marketing person. Why don't you interview? And I'm like, sure, fine, whatever. So I interview and I get the job and I'm just biding my time until another radio station in Philadelphia switches formats to something alternative. And then me and my friends, we all got hired again. And then I'm back on track. And
we're getting the band back together.
And when I got hired at Five Below, I was the first marketing person. They were such a small company at the time. It was very much a startup company. As the first marketing person, I was the only marketing person. I reported directly to the co-founders and the CEO. And I hated it there. The first couple of months there. I hated everything about it. I thought everyone was stupid. I thought retail was stupid. And all I wanted to do was go back to radio. And then all of a sudden one day everything clicked and I'm like, oh, I kind of love this and I love this store and I love retail and I love the people. It just took me a little while to get there.
Yeah.
And then I stayed there for 10 years. And, I think, I did go to grad school, but I always think that Five Below was actually my grad school because that's where I got to try out all these new things. I could do and test everything. I built the advertising program. I built the PR program. I started the social media program.
Yeah.
We were really just the Wild West, just trying things, building and growing the company. Eventually we started to hire more people and build. I think when I started at Five Below, we had 20 stores. And when I left, we had 400.
Wow.
And we went through an IPO. That was a really great thing to bring it through an IPO. I really learned and sharpened all of my skills and being able to report to the CEOs and work with senior leadership. It was just such a great time to develop.
It's really interesting because I think back, and I'm trying to tell the short version of the story, but like something, I won't even tell the anecdote, but I'll just get to the point of, I feel like if you look around, most people are not in some career where they, like since a kid go, I'm going to do that. And then it's usually you take an opportunity, life puts you in a direction and you're just open and then accepting. And then you sharpen your skills and become an expert in that space. And 10 years later, you turn back and you're like, oh, I'm an expert now in this arena that I never expected to be in.
And I never had any formal training.
Right.
We were so entrepreneurial that like the CEO would say, hey, you need to go do this thing. And I would just figure it out. I just figured it out. So like all of my learning was like by fire, like trial by fire.
It's funny because that's similar for me in my video production career, right? It was literally, I went from a one-man band that was shooting events and just, okay, well, how do we do that? How do we do that? And whether it was technically, I'm like, how do I edit this thing to do this effect that I want? Or how do I build a brand that actually is going to meet the needs of the clients that we're working with? All of that was homegrown. But I really love the one part that I would say is different is I, from the get-go, had a passion for exactly this and enjoyed this and all these different aspects of it. I never knew that part. I've known you for all these years. I never knew that part where you like hated the first few weeks.
So much.
So I was literally going like, right. I was about to be like, we might need to cut this off.
Great. No, it's no secret. Everybody knows that I hated it at first, and I just like loved it. And as soon as I opened myself up, I think as soon as I opened myself up to like, oh, maybe radio and music isn't going to be my thing, or maybe I can be passionate about it and not be my career, and I should be open to other opportunities. And I realized like, gosh, I'm so fortunate. I'm in this entrepreneurial environment. I'm in a startup mode. I literally am being exposed to all these different things because, when you're in a startup company, like, sure, I was a marketing person, but I was also doing HR. I was also like helping the merchandisers.
Right.
Like, we were also buying. I was understanding supply chain. I was going out into the stores and like working in the stores and being in the field. And like, what a great opportunity. Like, why would I be so silly to just like, thumb my nose? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So,
it's like surrendering to that, right?
Is.
It's like, yeah.
And the great thing about Five Below is we built this really strong culture, and I was a part of that, and I was helping to build that culture, and the culture was a great culture because I was able to help influence that culture along with other people. And once I embraced that, I thought, oh, this is so great. And you know what? Like I said, like I stayed there for 10 years, and got promoted a couple of times and grew with the company, and my roles changed a little bit over time, and it was awesome. And even today, I look at Five Below and I'm like, oh, that's so cool that I was a part of that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And just for context, in terms of like the big strategic initiatives that you'd be a part of, and also sort of the nitty gritty, like a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, like, I've got the vision and I'm also sweeping the floors. One of the projects Liz and I got to work on was literally, we literally were crawling around on the floor when you guys were switching from 1616 to 1818, and literally made the stop motion film where the two of us were just doing this together, while also like, I had a smaller team at the time. You're there going like, answering calls about like bigger strategic marketing things, while we're like, okay, no, this little toy should probably now jump from the desk to the floor. This is probably the moment for that stuff. So it's really interesting to see that. So, okay, where do we go next? So 10 years of Five Below, IPO, pretty awesome story there.
Yeah.
And where do we go from there?
Yeah, so there were some changes in the business, and I thought, gosh, I've been here for 10 years. Like, maybe this is a good time for me to try something new. I had started to volunteer at my local animal rescue organization, and I really loved volunteering there, and I got really passionate about it, and I thought, maybe this is something that I want to do. I want to work for a nonprofit. So I left Five Below. I briefly worked at a animal rescue, and then went over to Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. I worked there for 3 years. So I knew the people who ran Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, Liz and Jay Scott, because they were a partner of ours at Five Below. So I worked with them when we were building the sort of our philanthropy, and nonprofit strategy. Alex's was one of our partners. So I got to know them really well, and I got to know their story, and I just really loved what they were doing.
Sure.
And, they reached out to me one day and they said, hey, we're looking for a marketing comms person. Do you know anyone? And I'm like, yeah, yes, I do. So I went over there and I worked for 3 years and helped them with their programming. And they're just such a wonderful, great, dynamic organization. And I loved it. At the end of the day, I missed sort of that for-profit world. I missed sales. And I thought, at the end of the day, for me, I'm a better volunteer and donor than I am having this be my career. And so I went back into essentially like retail, but in a little bit of a different way.
Okay, awesome. And it's funny. So I just kind of cherry pick off of Liz's career. So every time she goes somewhere else, I'm like, I see the LinkedIn update. I'm like, what are we gonna do now? So we did some videos for you guys at Alex's back then. That was a cool project to work on as well. And then, and so bring us up to. So actually, before I bring us up, I think that you're starting to see this career trajectory. And again, this episode's really about how do you leverage your expertise or leverage your career and your experience into other areas that you want to explore. So we're already seeing that, right? Like, I don't know what we leveraged from Y100 to do the Five Below stuff, right? But I would say that I'll call that being like surrendering and being open to new things and being willing to learn and try, right? And I think that opened your eyes to these other new opportunities. And then it's, you're starting to play with this idea of giving back and taking your experience for Five Below, the building, the marketing experience, all those things, and going and deploying that into places that have meaning, right? And doing that in that way. And how do we get to where we are today? Before we get into sort of the fun community stuff that you're doing, where are you today, and what's your role there?
Yeah, so just to kind of bring us up to today, after Alex's, I went to a startup company for a brief amount of time. We didn't get seeding, moved on, and then I went to GoPuff, and I worked for GoPuff for 3 years. A lot of similarities to my experience at Five Below, startup mode, a lot of fundraising, high growth. I mean, COVID hit, and then that business really took off astronomically. And so, we had already been growing before then, but it really heightened and amplified a lot of that growth. And we were doing acquisitions and so on. So spent 3 years there, and then I left there, and now I'm at Vault Communications. This is my first agency job. I've always been in-house, but now I'm on the agency side, and I get to work with really great clients every day.
What are some of the, me being on the agency side, right? What are some of the things that you, like if you were to do a pros and cons list, like a quick one, what are some of the things that are really cool about being inside, but maybe somewhat limiting? What are some of the things that are really awesome about the agency side, but a little maybe sometimes difficult or challenging?
Yeah. So for my brain, which is just chaotic.
I feel like we should just do a vertigo effect in the video and just the whole film starts spinning right now. That's just to get into your brain.
There's just like a lot of like things in my head that are constantly bouncing around. And I think for me, agency work is exciting because I get to work on completely different things all day long, completely different clients in completely different industries. And having that type of variety keeps my brain fresh and creative.
Yeah.
I loved working in-house, and I love being able to deep dive and really get to know a business. But it is limiting, and it's great working in-house for a lot of different reasons. You can really get to know people. On the agency side, sometimes you can see the business in a fresher and more objective way, right? Yeah. And so I'm able to provide counsel that, to in-house folks that maybe they're not able to see, or maybe they're not able to identify opportunities. And because I work on all these different clients, I'm aware of other things that are out in the marketplace, and other ideas, and we bring that type of expertise to our clients. And I work with really great clients. I'm so fortunate. And it's just fun to get to know different businesses and industries. Like I have clients in the automotive space and in the nonprofit space and the healthcare space. And I'm working with an entrepreneur company right now, and it's really cool to help them build their business, just like I've been able to do that in my other careers.
Well, I love it because you could obviously leverage the experience of being, and I think that one of the things, if you've only been on the agency side, right, you don't always get visibility to what the real pain points are internally. And so one of the things that I find that I think later in my career I really figured out was working with folks like you on the inside and having those conversations like, okay, these are the actual, beyond the scope of what they're asking us to do, there's these other things that are going on beyond the scenes that are their pain points and things they have to overcome. And if we want to be a good strategic partner, we need to be understanding those and advising on them as well. I'm in the video space, but a lot of times delivering that video on the most baseline level is not just going to be the stakeholder that I'm working with. It's going to have to be approved by somebody else behind there. And if we aren't thinking about that and going, hey, how do we work together so that your vision comes to life, and also we don't get Monday morning quarterbacked at the last mile? That conversation has to happen as a partnership, right? And so if we don't know that that's even going to happen, we're not asking the right questions. So I think that I imagine having that experience on both sides just makes you so much more powerful for the clients you're working with today. And I can definitely resonate with the switching gears in terms of industries, right? And it just, when I think about literally this week, we're having a conversation with a nonprofit that is trying to keep folks safe and young people safe who are from over drinking and drinking too much alcohol. We have a builder in the Pacific Northwest, at the same time a construction company, at the same time a pharma company. Like, it just completely runs the gamut. And I think that does. It keeps your brain fresh, and you start to almost, I don't know about you, but I find sometimes you start to see all the similarities and differences across these industries, and then you're able to sort of kind of map it out and go, okay, this is this one thing that's true for everybody that nobody sees internally, and I can share that. And then here are the things that are unique to your industry. Do you find that you're able to find those opportunities too?
Yeah, I think one of the unique things I'm able to bring in an agency is because I have been that in-house person where I've had to, I know this is a good idea, but now I need to sell in the CEO and the senior leadership and, the finance team and all this different stuff. So I can help them to sort of get that buy-in and like let's sell this idea. Let's get their support. Let's show that what we're doing has impact so that we're able to do these type of things again. And so I have a lot of empathy and a lot of respect for the in-house marketing person. I mean, going back to Five Below days, like the amount of steps that I used to take going back and forth between the co-founders to get some approvals. All day long, I just go, their offices are in opposite parts of the building.
You're just tracking it the whole way through.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, go ask David, go ask Tom. Like, okay. All day long, I would do that. So I really understand that, and I try to help when we come up with these ideas. We want them to be, executable, and for people to get excited about them. And a lot of times in marketing is they don't always have the respect in certain organizations. Sure. Everyone thinks that they I'm a marketer, I can do their job. So I get that. I have a lot of. I really enjoy working with the in-house folks as well, but it is fun to be a little bit on the outside and and just getting to know different industries. Like one of my clients used to be in the pest management field, and we do a lot of work educating consumers about the risks of like bugs, rodents, ticks, and everything like that. The amount that I know about ticks and roaches and ants and like I'm a great party guest. I have so many interesting facts.
All right, I'm doing it right now.
Oh gosh, this is a lot of pressure.
Give me one gross pest fact that's going to just like give people the ick right now. What's that thing that
gross? I don't even think that like bugs are gross anymore. Like I've just been
even better.
And again, like as a marketer, communicator, you get to do cool things. Like I flew down to New Orleans a couple years ago to do a video shoot, and we were filming cockroaches, mice, and rats. And who's a worse actor than a child is a cockroach. And we actually would have to freeze the cockroaches because it'll slow down their systems. And then like right before we were going to film them, we actually built a set. We built a kitchen, we built a bathroom to show like how these and we took these bugs, we dipped them in ink, like fluorescent ink, and we'd have them crawl around a kitchen, and then we'd turn off the lights, then you could see all their footprints. Because what we were trying to say is just because you can't see that there are rodents and pests in your house, like that they might be there in the dark. So we'd freeze these cockroaches, then we'd dip them in this ink, and then we'd like put them on the counter, and like 30 seconds would go by, they'd warm up, and then they just run around. So like I weirdly know how to like manipulate cockroaches, and the videos ended up being great. They're amazing. There's like little like cockroach things, and like we did it with like mice, and you see their like tail like all over the kitchen counter. It was so gross. They're so gross.
It's really funny. So it reminds me of, I forget what that show is where they do science experiments and they just like show, it's not, I keep wanting to say Truth or Dare. That's not what it is. It's like whatever, fact or fiction or something like that. Anyway, they did this bit where they staged a dinner scene, and they did a very similar thing where they got everybody's hands in this like fluorescent ink, and then they were just like, have a meal together and try to be clean, right? And some of the people knew to try to be clean. Some of the people were just like regular having a meal. And then at the end, they shut off the lights and showed like even the people that intentionally were trying to like wipe their hands and not shake hands and be very conscientious, invariably they'd like have wiped the thing on their nose and whatever. And so they were trying to show just how bacteria spreads and all that different stuff. So it's interesting that that how gross this episode has gotten so quickly.
But I thought we were going to be talking about like helping kids and cats.
We kept threatening that this was going to go off the rails. I did not expect this, and I'm glad I'm glad we're here.
But I'm not surprised.
No, not shocked. Not even a little bit. Not at the beginning even. So that's a really cool creative concept, by the way, which is just like good to hear that really quick before we hop off of that, did you have issues where like being non-cooperative. The cockroaches were just like not even crossing where you wanted them to go in the kitchen, and you had to like redo these shots and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is we worked with this third party who are scientists and they're experts in the field. So they just like have like cockroaches, like they just have cockroaches, they have mice, or they borrowed them for a university or something like that. We started off the shoot with 10 cockroaches and we ended with like 6. Like we literally lost 4 cockroaches.
So they just somewhere.
They like scurried away. They're like still in the building today.
I'm worried that PETA sees this, and I don't know if PETA's gonna. Does PETA care? Does PETA get worried about cockroaches? We should probably. I shouldn't even put this in the transcript right now, just so that they don't target this episode.
Well, like they weren't harmed. They just
they're
just
fine.
like disappeared.
They're fine. The cockroaches are fine.
Like they went with it. They found a little hole and they're hanging out in plumbing somewhere in a basement. And
Just
they're,
enjoying
like,
life.
Happy as heck.
So happy.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess at the end
And
of
the
the
rat
day.
that we worked with, his name was Rat Damon. Just want you to know
That's
that.
pretty good. Who named him Rat Damon? I'll wait.
The scientists.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I feel
Yeah.
like I imagine that group of scientists, like, sure, they're probably doing their research and stuff, but in my head, I just imagine in the context of you calling them for this shoot, it's like the phone in the beginning of Ghostbusters that never rings. Like, I just feel like it's like that. I can't imagine, like, what else are you, what are they scientificizing that,
They're entomologists.
Okay.
And you can imagine that New Orleans is a hotbed of pest activity, because of the weather and the humidity and everything like that. So there's this center in New Orleans where they
test all this.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like around like mosquitoes and like testing them for disease.
Oh, so you selected that place because you could come in and do a shoot there because they already have the facility.
Yeah,
Very,
they were
very
a great
cool.
partner where they had the access to the pets that we wanted to take care of, and like they let us build this set in their facility. We literally built a kitchen and a
kitchen in
bathroom,
there,
and we
yeah.
did all these different experiments and everything like that.
That's really cool.
It was really neat, and they're great partners, but like. It was a really gross but
Yeah,
cool
I'm
day.
sure. Yeah, when
It
you
was
walk in, you're
awesome.
like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay." I'm like, were you just like itchy for like 3 days after that? Like, was that?
No, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you.
It doesn't bother me. Yeah, and that some entomologists like they're really really cool, and they like they'll just like let like mosquito or they bed bugs. They'll let like bed bugs just like eat on their skin and like
What?
Yeah. It's wild. Actually, of all the pests, the only one that really freaks me out is bed bugs.
Yeah.
So gross,
And
and they're actually not harmful. Like I mean, they're so hard to get rid of. But
Right.
like they don't really exactly spread disease. But they're awful.
gross, yeah.
And they're so hard to get rid of. And like they come out at night and they're attracted to
Do
your
you
breath.
walk out-
It's like carbon from your breath that they're attracted to. I know it's so gross.
We're gonna take a minute. We're gonna do a brief intermission so that
Yeah.
John can collect himself.
Again, this
'Cause
is why I'm a great dinner of guests.
Yeah, this is exactly. Yeah. It's like everyone's like, I didn't have any of the quesadillas because Liz told that story.
Let me tell you about all the diseases that mice,
So like, do you walk out? I'm gonna stop because I have too many questions. So this is actually a perfect place to transition because now we're gonna go into how do you leverage your bug experience, your bug marketing experience into places you're passionate. And so I'll tease this up with, especially if you're in the media area of Pennsylvania, you may have come across some Elizabeth Romaine in your life because you really, that's a weird way of saying it, but it's fine. Because you've really leveraged this experience into some of the areas of your passion in volunteerism and politics, right? So tell us a little bit about how did that evolve?
Yeah.
And what does it look like today?
So I think I mentioned, when I started working at Five Below, I did start volunteering at a local animal rescue, Providence Animal Center. I'd always been kind of passionate about animals and had an opportunity to start volunteering there. And, I would do some stuff with the animals, but where they really needed help and where I was able to help the most is with their marketing and events. So they have these events that are fundraising mechanisms, to nonprofit. They need money. And so I just started helping them plan events and I get like really into it. And, I planned events at Five Below and I planned the Y100. It was so, concerts and all that. We were so oriented. So this was really a really natural way for me to help out. And I really enjoyed it. And I still am involved in Providence. COVID hit. And, it was a really tough time for my family. Like it was for a lot of people. And, a lot of changes happened and it made me think to myself, how do I want to show up in the world? Like, what am I doing now? And how do I want to show up in the world? And at the time I had a career coach and she would talk to me about like legacy, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, right? Like legacy, like what, I'm not Caesar. Like I'm not going to be like buildings that are going to be named after me, right?
If you're Caesar, watch your back, by the way. That's
Yeah, it's a mark.
not a good, yeah. Nice. Well played.
Thank you.
Nice.
But so, and I was like, that's kind of weird. I'm like, no, like, it's like, how do you want to show up in the world? Like, how do you want to leave the world? Like, what do you want that impact to be? And I thought it was a really good question. And then again, with COVID, it just kind of brought a lot of these questions to mind. And I thought, really what I love is where I live in Media Borough. Like, I love that community. I love the neighborhood. I love everything about it. And I thought to myself, like, how can I, use what I do and help the community? And so at the time it was an election year. And I just started to get involved in local party outreach. And, if you remember, if you're in Pennsylvania, there was they changed the voting. So there was a lot of confusion about COVID and voting, and then there was a lot of confusion about this new way of voting that was with this paper ballot instead of a book. There's a lot of confusion out there. So I just started volunteering, just like helping someone run their social media page to put out accurate information about how to vote that year.
Cool.
And then someone's like, hey, thanks for your help. We're looking for someone to run for council. Like, would you be interested? And I was like, what is borough? Like, I didn't know anything about local politics, and I don't know. Somehow I Forrest Gumped my way into
What a great visual.
I asked questions. I thought I had answers, but the way they describe the thing and you actually doing the thing are not the same. Yeah. So I ran for council in 2021 and I won. So I am an elected official in Media Borough, and I just ran again and won. So I'm actually just started my second term.
Amazing. What was it like? By the way, I can't help myself but make this joke. It is not lost on me the fact that we transitioned from bugs to politics. and there's a cockroach joke.
I have made those jokes before.
There's a cockroach joke somewhere in there. I'm not going to make it now.
No,
now that I'm talking to an elected official, I dare not.
No, I've made that joke like many times myself. And it's so interesting because local government is so different from the entrepreneurial background that I'm used to and like kind of grew up in and what I think thrive in, because the pace of local government is so slow. And
interesting.
And like the first year I was like, come on, guys, like, let's make a decision. Like, what are we doing? We have to do what? We have to post this thing publicly before I'm like, this is so annoying. There's so much red tape. And I have grown to appreciate that there is some magic to the process of like local government moving more slowly, because you want to be methodical. You can't like undo a bill, right?
Right.
Like, it's different if I below. Like if we put out an ad, it didn't work. Okay, fine. Then just put another ad. Yeah, like not a big deal. In 2 seconds, everyone is going to forget about it. If you pass an ordinance and it doesn't work, well, there's a lot of legal, it's a whole thing.
There's ramifications, sure.
I've learned to respect that process a little bit more, but it was very different for me, and my brain was like absolutely going nuts. I was like, this is really crazy. But learning something so new. I mean, again, I have no experience in local government. I have no legal background. I have nothing. I just cared about the borough.
Right.
And it really brought like a fresh thinking to my brain, like being forced to learn something completely new, completely uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable and like leaning into that discomfort was actually so fresh for my brain that when I went back to work, I was able to think about things even more clearly and more creatively, because I had this like other learning going on. And so I have personally benefited from that in a lot of ways too.
That's awesome. That's actually exactly where I was going to go next, which is, does one hand feed the other, right? Your professional life leading up to this moment sort of informs the way you're approaching, and frankly was how you get into politics a little bit, right? You're hitting these guardrails where you're like, oh my gosh, this is really slow compared to what I'm used to. But does it kind of go back the other way where you're able to take a fresh look at the for-profit space and go, hey, maybe we can slow this down a little bit or think about this differently, et cetera? Is there one thing that jumps out at you, or, and not to put pressure on you, but sure, that maybe you brought back from your experience in politics to your work at Vault today? Like, is there something that you do differently now that you're like, I definitely wouldn't have done it this way, but I do this now because of my experience?
I think there's a couple of things. One is I think I'm a better listener now. So I really hate campaigning. It's the worst thing on earth. But you go out and you meet people and you listen to them, and then like when you're in the role, as a council member, and particularly the committees that I sit on, which are like finance or whatever, like I work with the police chief, I work with the chief of the fire company, I work with, some of the nonprofits that are partners, and, just really I think I've sharpened my listening skills and like really tried to understand like where their pain points are. And I think, going back into the client environment, like we want to listen, right? We go into a business and we try to become experts in the industry and expert in their business. And I think I've improved my listening skills. On a less positive side.
This is the fun part, guys.
I have had,
buckle up.
I've had to, I tend to be an emotional and sensitive person, but I've really had to build up some armor. So, I've had people at public meetings come in and accuse me of acting like Vladimir Putin because of something that like they disagree with. I mean, like I've had, people have said pretty tough things to hear.
Sure.
Whether I agree with them or not, you still hear them. And
right.
I think, I still feel like, someone will post on social media like, oh, parking in media is annoying. And I'm like, oh, it's my fault. So I feel those things, but I am a little tougher now. And I think I'm able to receive feedback a little bit more productively now too.
Sure.
Kind of filter out some of the ridiculousness. And then take some of the feedback that's more relevant a little bit more seriously. So it's kind of a weird armor I've had to build.
That's cool. Does it give you, and not to obviously like, the idea here in this episode is really to talk about how you transition into these things, be open to these things, et cetera. But like, it's interesting for me. Does it give you a different perspective on, state, national, political arena of just like for the people that are involved in that space, like what that feels like at that level, right? Where like for most of us, you take for granted, like you look at the news and then you just go like either great or insert expletive. Like, do you have a little bit of a different like either appreciation or perspective? Has it shifted that for you when you look at, the news and go, here's what's happening in the world, and you have the inside baseball, a little bit of what, at least at this, at the media level, what that feels like?
Yeah. I have learned that politically speaking, sometimes you ideally wish for something, but then getting there immediately is unwise, right? So for me, I think that a lot of small changes add up to big change. Mm. And I think that if you in government just like go from 0 to 60, you just make that big change. There are a lot of things that can fall apart. And so you might ask me how I feel about X, and I'm like, oh, ideally I'd like to get here, but there's all these different things you can do in between. And I think, before I started to govern, I thought, well, just do the thing. Just ban the thing or do the thing or fund the thing. Like, just do it. Right. And I'd watch the news and I'd get frustrated. Like, this has got to be easy. It's like, well, actually, it isn't that easy. And that there is a process. And, with every decision that's made, there are consequences to it. And there's collateral damage. And you need to be a little bit more thoughtful. So I think I'm a little more empathetic of lawmakers on a more like state and national level for sure, but also like do your job. And so sometimes that empathy, I'm like I don't know, just
right, because you also
do the thing, like stop. But I don't have all the influences. Like I don't have like a lobbying arm or anything like that. I'm just some girl that like shows up to a couple of meetings sometimes
and gets called Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know how I am. I just love to be a dictator.
In that person's defense, dressing up as a dictator at those local meetings is probably not the best look.
I thought it was a good Halloween costume, but in hindsight, maybe that was.
This Putin costume isn't good for the parking conversation we're about to have today.
No,
all right.
I guess not. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for people who want to do this as a career. I do not want to do it as a career.
Well, I love it because I think that it really demonstrates, like if you look back on the conversation we've had today, there's been a lot of milestones that you've had throughout your career. Some of them have been sort of thrust upon you, right? Y100 shutting its doors, which by the way, RIP, I still remember my Y100 days and listening to Y100. So 100.3 FM. Or 100.3. Yeah. I was right. Because then there's like a 100, there's B101, but then anyway, this is going to go really off the rails in a minute. Start calling call signs right now.
I'll go into it with you too.
I'm sure.
Yeah, WPLMI.
Neither of us are going to stop it is the problem.
Exactly.
And so, and then you see this career trajectory. And then you get to this point where you develop these skills, you develop this expertise, you've had these experiences, and then you get to kind of choose now How do I want to leverage these? And you've been able to do that. So I guess for somebody listening that's hearing this and might be inspired, whether it's a career shift into a different industry, maybe they're just looking for a new job and they're just like, I'm going to apply for this, but I have no experience in this area, right? Like I've worked in retail. How am I going to switch to a pharma business or whatever? Or they want to serve, right? What are some of the things that you would say if you were to break it down in sort of a system or a process or a methodology to go, okay, here's the things you need to think about and do in order to do this in a way that is going to work for you?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One is, you need to identify what you're passionate about. Like, what do you want to help? Is it animals? Is it kids? Is it whatever? For me, I want to help kids and cats. Kids, cats, and trees. That's kind of my thing. So, I still help out Providence Animal Center, and I've joined the board of Family Support Line, which is this great organization in Delaware County that helps victims of childhood sexual abuse. So I'm really passionate about their mission. And then I even more recently, joined the board of Tyler Arboretum, which is where I get married.
Yeah.
You might remember.
I do remember that. People are still trying to forget my dance moves from that wedding, right? Memorable for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. No, it was great. Great. We definitely don't have video of it that we're going to edit into this episode.
We can't cut anything into this.
Exactly. But, Tyler is important to me because actually on my mom's side, we're able to trace some of our origins. I have Quaker origins and it's a Quaker settlement, and my parents volunteered there and I got married there. So I sort of had this personal connection to Tyler, and I really loved nature and trees and all that. So these are things that I'm passionate about. I would not want to be joining the board of something that I just wasn't as passionate about.
Sure.
And even if they could use my help, at the end of the day, this is my volunteer. I'm not getting paid for this work. It's my volunteer time. I want to feel like it's a good use of my investment of my time, which is a resource. It's a limited resource, right? So I think it's really about thinking about where your passions are. I also think it's important to understand, do you have the resources to be able to devote time?
Sure.
So in my case, I work for a company that has a great, strong culture, and they're really encouraging of us having outside interests, and they have a lot of flexibility built into our benefits. So, I am able to attend a board meeting or, take time off to plan an event or whatever that is. And, I wouldn't be able to do that if I honestly still worked in an entrepreneurial environment, right?
Right.
When I worked at those other companies, they really, rightfully so, asked a lot of your brain and of your time. I have some more flexibility now, and I really appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons I like where I work, is that I'm able to have these other interests, and,
Sure.
and they see the benefit of it too, right?
Do they ever feedback? Though on the agency side, I know most of the work that we've done in the volunteer space and the nonprofit space ends up eventually, and that's not why we do it, but it ends up eventually serving back to the core mission of what we do, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody's going to need some video marketing support, right? Do you find that it ever comes back around that way?
Yes. I think it does. Ask the question again.
That's code for what are you talking about, Jon? No, well, look, if and maybe not in the government work, but in the nonprofit space for sure, if you're leveraging your skill set that you deploy every day for your clients at Vault, sometimes they're, hopefully not, but there could be crisis PR that somebody needs, right?
Yeah.
And does it ever come back around? It's like, hey, we might actually need your organization, because to that point, yes, allocating your resources, but for organizations that are, I don't know, let's say it comically, running their people on the ground, but for organizations that don't allow their employees that flexibility, there might be a message there of, hey, if your employees are going out and doing good in the world or doing these other passions, it's going to probably come back, right? In one form or another. Do you find that's happened for you at all yet, or see that there's opportunities for that?
Yeah, I think there is. And, there are a lot of, being involved in the community, worlds collide a lot. So,
right.
An example I can give is, on Borough Council, I think I might have mentioned, I work really closely with our chief of police. I work with the fire company. I understand what they do. Part of the borough helps fund their efforts. So, I know how they spend their money. I know what their challenges are. At Vault, we recently got a new client that I've been working with that is launching a new product that benefits first responders. And I'm like, oh, I know this audience. I know this audience. I work with this audience. I know what they're looking for. Sure. I know what this buyer profile is. So I was able to start with this new client with a little bit of a leg up, because I already kind of know those people. I know the messaging that we need to be crafting. I know how to engage them. And like, isn't that a win for Vault
Right.
that I already know this, because in my free time, I'm spending time with,
Doing
the target audience for this thing that we want to launch.
It's funny you say that, because one of the organizations that we work with, and again, these are like very different organizations in the nonprofit space, but one that I've been really close with, I actually MC their gala. We do the programming for it now. It's really a really awesome relationship that's been probably over 15 years now, is the Philly Friendship Circle. One of the things that we learned in working with that group, and Philly Friendship Circle, just for context, their mission is to create friendships between kids with neurodiversity, and neurotypical teens to be friends. That's literally the goal, right?
Very fun.
And so it's such an amazing community. We've been a part of this for a long time, but we've also learned the terminology, the vocabulary, like how to be sensitive to how we talk about things. Well, when we transition over to other nonprofits, and, again, very different worlds with Child USA, for example, which is the national nonprofit think tank on child sex abuse, we may not know the terminology, but we actually know what to ask, right? So now working with them for 6 years, we knew what to walk into the door and say, hey, how do you talk to the people, how do you talk about and talk to the people you serve? What are their needs? How do we communicate the difference between a survivor or a victim? What terminology do we not use? And so, I mean, that goes across the board in anything that you do with, obviously, in PR and in marketing, but you need to know those things, but understanding empathetically how to ask that question and how to really, and to really care about it, right? And to care about the answer, and then not just to be like, hey, on this document, make sure not to use this word, and really think about it. I think that all of that plays back into ultimately how you serve people, whether it's through the nonprofit world, your community, or the work you do every day.
Yeah, we do so much work every day with like messaging and branding and narrative development. And listen, the nonprofits I work with, they're smaller, and they have stressed, they might have a dedicated marketing person, but not really, but any of those people, they're running around, they're fundraising, they're planning their events or whatever it is. So it is really fun for me to go into an organization who has the time in a volunteer capacity and say, well, let's look at this mission statement. Like, let's look about how we're using words, to your point, how we're talking about it. At Family Support Line, because we work with children, there's a lot of things that we can't say. We can't really talk about our victims, right? Unlike Providence Animal Center, where, if an animal comes in and they've had a tough time, they've been, collected by like law enforcement, we can talk about that dog's story. There's no like HIPAA, they're not minors, it doesn't matter. And so Providence has a really great way to tell these stories so that people can get really passionate about their mission. At Family Support Line, we can't talk about these stories because we really for a variety of ethical and legal reasons. So it's a little tougher to talk about their mission and how we're addressing that mission when we can't necessarily do it through case studies. And so we spend a lot of time talking about, like, what is that messaging? What's that narrative development? How do we talk about how important our work is without actually showing, the victim itself? And that's tough. It's a tough communications problem. And it's one that we continually to try to solve for, because we tend to be an organization that doesn't have a lot of awareness to it. And also, like, people don't like to talk about child sexual abuse, but people like to talk about animals. And so both of these organizations have similar missions in the sense that they want to be impactful to their local community. They need to raise money. They need to do all that. But there's different paths to do that. And that's interesting coming from my perspective and trying to help them get there within their own resources and within their own terminology.
It's funny because I was about to try to put you on the spot and go, okay, so when because we always love to add value. That's my biggest thing. If we're asking for attention, we should be providing value. And so my question was going to be, so how do you do it, Liz? How do you, when you can't do the case studies and you can't talk about the thing, how do you do it? And it just brought up for me that we have that same issue with several of the organizations that we work with, one of which is Project Home, right there, solving homelessness and trying to fight homelessness in Philadelphia. And one of the big challenges every time is, and people are willing to tell the story, but it's so important to do that in a way that actually is sensitive to all of those things. And so, I don't know that the answer, I don't know if you have a better answer than this, but I think the answer has always been, it's thinking about it every time and talking it through every time and going through that, not necessarily like a specific checklist, but like a checklist that everybody that's involved in the conversation is keeping that front of mind of what we can't do and what we wouldn't do because of how we want to respect and honor the people we serve. So okay, let's think about that. Let's remind ourselves what that is, and then let's talk through what solutions are. And I just think it's a process. Would be my answer.
It is.
So now I'll put you on the spot. What's your
No, that's good. And, and I think, I'm curious what you would say, someone who also is on an agency side, but, so much of our work is, responding to client needs and pivoting, right?
Yeah.
And being able to move very quickly. And that's what we did in the entrepreneurial world, right? Like, we look at like how sales were yesterday, and then we change what we do today to respond to that, right? I mean, Q4, you may remember, it's always like crazy.
Sometimes.
We get like literally hourly sales, and we're like, okay, like now we know how our Monday morning is going to be. It's going to be crazy. To responding to the good or the bad or whatever. And I think, coming into and working with nonprofit organizations, and especially in these times, they constantly have to pivot. So going back to Family Support Line, a lot of their funding was government based. We'd get a lot of grants and everything like that. Well, a lot of that money has dried up over the last year and a half. So like, how does that organization pivot from being a primarily grant funded organization to depending more on individual donations? And that's a really scary thing to have to do.
Sure.
But we've had to pivot before, and so it's a big thing that we need to solve for. But I don't know, like, let's just figure it out. Let's just figure it out. And I think that's like coming from like an entrepreneurial background, a startup background. Like, I guess the foolishness of it is like, well, we'll just figure it out. Like, we'll just figure it out. Like, we'll just figure.
We're just gonna figure it out.
Just gonna figure it out.
And we're just gonna keep saying that until we figure it out.
It's like the stupidity of the confidence of coming from a startup. Like, well, I don't know. We'll just, no big deal. Like, I very rarely think anything is a big deal.
I think that's
I'm numb.
It's brilliant, because that is, I do think that it's funny. That is what resilience actually means. Like, I think a lot of people talk about resilience and they're like, or they talk about grit and growth mindset and whatever. But actually that's what it is. It's saying that, like, we're going to figure it out. It's maybe optimism. It's determination. It's all those different pieces. But it's easier to go, we're going to figure it out, when you have a track record of having figured it out multiple times.
Yeah.
And
you start to believe in yourself that, like,
you can do
this
that.
is true. Like,
This will be true. And I think sometimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that way. And just, I think that the big thing is defining, I'll go Brene Brown, right? It's defining what success looks like, because then you know what figuring it out is, and setting that goal. If the goal is, we got to keep this organization going and serving our people, right? Then at the end of a month, a quarter, 6 months, a year, you can look back and go, we're continuing to do that. We figured it out, right? Like, it's actually sometimes also not complicating it too much, right? Because I think sometimes people get analysis paralysis of just like, well, how are we going to figure it out? But it's okay.
I think when I think of like, what is the value I'm bringing to the organizations that I'm helping out with? And, there are a lot of different things that I may or may not bring. I think sometimes, like, giving counsel to staff that, like, we'll pivot, everything will be fine. Like, this will feel tough, and this will feel really awkward, and it'll feel uncomfortable. But if we all, like, chip in, if we all, like, think about things, if we trust each other, if we trust the team, like, we will
figure it out.
Figure it out.
Right?
I just figured out what you were going to say.
Exactly. I know. It's like we're one mind. But yeah, I mean, I think that just like comes with experience too, right? Like, it comes from with experience, and it comes with the benefit of like being a third party in an organization. But like, of course, if I was staff and these changes were happening, I would be upset. Who wouldn't be?
Of course.
But we can kind of provide this counsel and, navigate these waters. And by the way, like, there will be more change. Like, this is like, we're not going to fix this problem, then everything's going to get, there'll be another problem.
Yeah.
So I find that kind of, I find it exciting to be able to help try to solve
those issues,
these like nonprofit problems that, we see in our day-to-day business life as well.
Transitioning back to the 3 things, I think it was 3, that you should really consider if you're going to go leveraging your expertise. You've got picking something you're going to be passionate about. And then what else do we have?
Making sure you have a support system.
Yep.
Whether it's through work, through your family, whatever. Getting involved in a nonprofit or volunteering, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't need to feel like it's a second job.
Right.
There are a lot of places that would happily take your 1 or 2 hours a month, and that would be great.
Sure.
So it doesn't need to feel like a lot of commitment. It doesn't need to feel like you need to be held accountable for things. But you need to have the right resources. You need to make sure that you can like keep your home and like keep your kids alive or whatever it is, like while you're out volunteering or doing this thing. And a lot of volunteer work is also seasonal too. So at Providence, I really do most of my work in like the spring and the fall, and I do almost nothing in the summer because I do I support event functions. So I might blog 20 hours in a month in October and then 0 in August. And that works for me. So part of it is that. And then part of it is just, I think at a certain point in your career or in your life, you might feel uncomfortable about walking into new spaces or like meeting new people or whatever. Or being like, oh, if I join this, what if I don't like it? Well, then just quit. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay. You don't need to do that. And just sort of having the confidence or being open to new experiences and being okay with being a little uncomfortable or embracing the fact that you're learning about something new that maybe you don't understand at first. And, I love helping organizations. I love trying to help like create a positive impact in my community, but I've also like very selfishly like met very cool people. Right. And I was open to meeting new people, and like, some of my best friends now are people I serve on boards with, or we hang out or whatever. And you just get to meet new people. And then again, selfishly from an agency perspective, like now I'm making more connections that hopefully, maybe they become clients later on or whatever it might be. And, building that network is always such a good thing. So, so I think there's like sort of that resources, like, are you able to do this? But also like having the mindset of just being open to doing something new.
I love that. And where I was going to go, and I think you answered that question, was what's the payoff, right? Mm-hmm. Because maybe if we're talking to an audience, like your career trajectory and story has kind of been, as it's unfolded today, starting off, like your story arc starts right after Y100, where you were closed off and didn't want to be doing this and hated everything because you hadn't moved on from that moment, right? And then when you opened up to this new opportunity, you blossom, the opportunity blossoms, and then all these other career journeys that you've had are sort of stem from that one decision to finally like embrace those early days of Five Below. When you flash forward to now the volunteer work, where I was going to kind of go is, what if I'm somebody who you had you decided, I want to see how I show up in the world and I want to make a change and I want to volunteer in this way. And that matters to me. But like, if somebody's watching this and they're going, okay, I love the idea of openness. I love the idea of making a change or doing something new, but I don't know necessarily, what it should be. My point was, what's the payoff? And I think you just said that, right? It's the relationships that you make. It's the way that it's going to pay it forward or pay it back to you in terms of what your core thing that you're so good at and have expertise in. I think those are really valuable things. I think for anybody that's watching this that goes, I'm interested in trying something new, but I'm standing on the ledge and I'm not ready to jump off, or I haven't even considered it, right? I've been doing accounting for 35 years. Why would I do anything else? I'm an expert in this space, and giving them that sort of, no, that's the payoff. These are the reasons why you should, I think are super valuable.
Well, isn't there that saying that like, give a man a fish, blah, 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 like teach a man the fish or something like that? Like, I think in this example that you're saying about the accountant, like, yeah, I'm sure they're really great at whatever they do. But the ability to go into a small, like under-resourced nonprofit and talk to them about finance and get them in order, like, wouldn't the benefit be able to, like, you could see what you do from a different perspective? Yeah. Like, that's so valuable. I mean, I teach. I'm an adjunct professor at Arcadia University, and I teach basic level PR and stuff that I could do in my sleep at work. But when you teach it to someone, you see it from a different perspective and a different angle, and then I'm like, oh gosh, and it, like, showing someone else how to do this work really makes me better at my work because I can see it through fresh eyes. Yeah. And I think from the accounting perspective, like, I would kill if you are an accountant and you want to join a nonprofit, I have just the one for you. Because we always need those type of skills, and we always, and a nonprofit has all sorts of different financial reporting that they need to do. And if it's so exhausting, so, going in and helping out, what a win, and how that can make you better at your.
And when it's not done right, like they can lose their 501c3 status, they could, and all these different ramifications, right?
Absolutely. And, if you're going after donors, like a good donor would want to know, like, what are your finances? They want to make sure that they're making this donation to an organization that's not a mess, right? That they're financially sound, that they're fiscally responsible, and so on. So it's so important.
I totally agree. Liz, thanks so much for coming on today. This was awesome. We learned a lot about career trajectory,
Let's
cockroaches, birds, bird law. I think bird law came up a couple times.
Yeah.
And
Figuring it out.
yeah, figuring it
Is
out.
that going to be the title of
This is
this
how we're going to
episode?
end, right? I'm going to count us down. We're going to do one figuring it out together. Ready? And this is how we end. Ready? And 3,
Wait,
2.
are we doing it on one or are we doing it after one?
This is not Lethal Weapon. Do you want a rock, paper, scissors? On
But I feel like, do you do it on the third or do you do it after the third?
I think we do it after the third.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Figuring it
Figuring it out.